Good afternoon, good evening, maybe good morning, depends where you're at. Welcome back to another rendition of the B&H Virtual Event Space. I'm very happy to welcome photographer Ian Lauer to the event space. Ian, what's going on? How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Super excited to talk about space, the stars, and all that good stuff.
Definitely. I'm pumped too. Anytime I get to talk to somebody about space, it just blows my mind. It's so large and vast, and there's so much I don't understand. And so sometimes I feel like my head's gonna explode right off. But hopefully that won't happen. Hopefully, it'll stay right here intact. We're talking about imagining the cosmos. Ian's got a great presentation for everybody who's joining us. So if you have any questions that you want to get into Ian, and you're joining us here on Zoom, use the Q&A tab. If you're joining us on live stream or Facebook, go ahead and use the comment section, and we'll make sure to get them over to Ian and get them answered towards the end of this webinar. But otherwise, without much further ado, I give you Ian Lauer, everybody. Ian, thanks for being here again. I'll see you in a little bit.
All right. Thanks so much, Scott. So talking about imaging the cosmos, taking your photography to the stars and beyond. Very, very fancy and poetic way to say, hey, let's take pictures of space. And so that's what I'm going to do. We're going to talk about, this is essentially just talking about astrophotography, a very high level view of how to get started and how to take photos of the night sky and the Milky Way all the way up to, photos of galaxies and nebula and things like that. So first and foremost, just to start with a little about myself, so you have an idea of who the heck is talking, who this talking head is. And yeah, so my name is Ian, as you probably heard Scott tell you. So I don't know why I'm telling you that, but we'll keep it going. So I studied astrophysics at college. I got my bachelor's degree in it. I've been in the telescope industry for a number of years. So I've been involved in astronomy for quite some time now. And I've put together imaging systems for professional, private observatories, government projects, and astrophotographers all over the world. And now I host like astrophotography workshops, stargazing tours, and print stores and things like that. And just a couple brands that I've worked with, in case that's something you care about. But we'll move on from that there. So just to show you here, I think I want to start from the beginning, the Big Bang. No, I'm just kidding. This is actually my first ever astrophoto that I took. It's of the Andromeda Galaxy back in 2015. And I think it's good to just show you like the beginnings, like where I started, because everyone starts somewhere, right? We all got to start. We all got to start in a place that, we don't know what we're doing. We're just out there doing it, having fun. And looking at this photo, I mean, now looking at it, it's a terrible photo. But back then in 2015, this photo was the most exciting picture I've ever taken in my life. Just knowing that I could use a camera and point it towards the sky and get an image of something other than just little pinpoints of light. I could get a distant galaxy that's 2.5 million light years away with my camera. Like, I didn't know that that was possible. And so that's what got me so excited. This image is more than just a terrible photo with, it's out of focus and the color is awful and things like that. It represents the start of a journey. And so for those of you who are just getting into astrophotography, make sure you save those first photos that you took, because you're going to look back at them and be amazed at how far you've actually come. So 2015 is when I took my first photo. I actually didn't use digital cameras until 2 years later, when I took my first Milky Way photo, right? This is the very first Milky Way photo I ever took. It was with a Canon Rebel. It was super noisy. I was so cool, at least I thought at the time. I was like standing there and here I am under the stars. Oh, this is so awesome. But again, we all got to start somewhere. Back in 2015, I shot my first deep sky photo using astronomy equipment. And then I picked up a digital camera. Actually, I borrowed one, this Canon Rebel camera, and took this photo of the night sky out in Joshua Tree. And so again, Like most people start with the digital camera and then move their way to deep sky. I kind of went the other way. I started with shooting those deep sky objects, galaxies and nebula and stuff like that, and then moved my way into putting a digital camera in my hand. And so, yeah, I just wanted to give you that quick overview because I think it's good to see, like, look, we all start somewhere, and we should be proud of where we start. And so, there's different types of astrophotography. When you hear the word astrophotography, it's an umbrella term because there's so many different things that fall into the astrophotography category, just like genres of music, right? So my favorite genre of music is heavy metal, and within that genre of music, there's tons of subcategories that fit within that. And astrophotography is the same thing. But I think a good way to sum this up is bundling things into three main categories. And the first one is probably the one we're most familiar with, right? It's taking photos of landscape with the Milky Way or the stars in the photo. We call nightscapes or Milky Way photography. And that's the one that probably most of us are familiar with and we see all over social media and things like that. The next one is solar system astrophotography, taking photos of planets, Jupiter and Saturn here. Also things like the moon or the sun, if you use proper equipment. And then there's deep sky astrophotography. Now, deep sky astrophotography essentially is anything outside of our solar system. So that includes nebula, like here, the Horsehead Nebula, galaxies, star clusters, all those great things. Now, in this talk, I'm mostly going to be focusing on nightscapes and deep sky astrophotography, mainly because solar system astrophotography is a whole nother beast and requires a lot of, I guess, different equipment than a digital SLR or a mirrorless camera. So I won't be focusing too much on that, but nightscapes and deep sky, I'll definitely be getting into here. All right. So again, just a big high level overview of this talk, right? I want to give you the tools and the concepts to help you go from maybe you've never taken a photo of the stars in your life, or you do astrophotography and you want to level up your game, right? And so this talk is all about guiding you through the different levels of astrophotography. And so, if you've never taken a photo of the stars in your life, or you want to get your camera for the first time, just specifically to get into astrophotography, I'll cover getting started in astrophotography. And maybe you're already an astrophotographer and you want to see where can I go next after this. And so that'll be the next one I talk about, which is tracking and stacking, using a tracker, stacking your images, why you want to stack, things like that. And then we'll go into using longer focal lengths, no longer just shooting the Milky Way, or you're going beyond the landscape and now you're focusing solely on the sky and you're using a longer focal length lens or a telescope. So I'll dive into that as well. And then if you got bit by the astrophotography bug and you just want to go all in, this is everything you've ever wanted, this is all you want to do, well, we'll go very quickly into going over the deep end, which is basically just going all in on your passion for astrophotography to get these beautiful shots of the night sky. All right, so getting started in astrophotography. Now, this is the question I get so often. I get asked, like, how do I get into this? What do I need to get started? What are the settings? All of those different things. And I'll tell you, there are three main things you need for astrophotography. You need a camera, right? DSLR, mirrorless camera, and you need a wide angle lens and a fast lens. And I'll go into why you need that in a moment. And you need a very stable tripod. So if you want to get started in astrophotography, if you have these three things, you'll be taking photos of the night sky in no time. So thank you for listening to me. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. That's it. We'll see you later. No, I'm just kidding. There's a lot more that goes into that. But definitely, if you have these three things, then you are going to be able to take amazing, amazing night sky photos and astro photos. You don't need all the complicated gear. Start simple, right? This is all you need. So when we talk about wide angle lenses, right, that probably is the most important part when it comes to getting into astrophotography. But why do you want a fast wide lens? Well, the key is light gathering power, right? Because the stars move in the night sky. I didn't know if you know that, but the stars are moving in the sky. Well, technically it's the Earth rotating and it makes it look like the stars are moving, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, from our vantage point here, it looks like the stars are moving across the night sky and they're always moving, right? And so you're battling the motion of the stars and you're trying to capture faint objects in the night sky. The Milky Way is super, super faint, which means you need long exposures, right? And so when I say light gathering power, the name of the game for astrophotography is getting in as much light as possible in the fastest and shortest amount of time, right? That is the name of the game when it comes to astrophotography, because you don't want to see those stars moving in your image. Otherwise, your Milky Way images are going to look smeared, right? And a great analogy is using this like rain bucket analogy. So if you imagine the light coming down from the Milky Way, if you look at my screen here, right, the light from the Milky Way is coming down onto my camera and my lens, and all of that light, those photons are like raindrops, right? Well, if you use a fast aperture, wide open aperture, you're using a bigger bucket to capture more light versus say you're shooting at f/22, really, really small, you're not letting in as much light. So you're using a smaller bucket, right? So you want to have a big bucket to capture as much light as possible in the shortest amount of time to prevent those star trails. All right, so you've got the gear, right? You've got your lens, your camera, your tripod. And the next step is to find a place to photograph the night sky. There's a thing called the Bortle scale. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but essentially the darkness of a location is rated on the scale 1 through 9, where 1 is the darkest skies and 9 is extreme light pollution. So for example, Big Bend, Texas is going to have the darkest skies. That's a Bortle 1, where LA, New York City, Las Vegas, those are Bortle 9 light pollution. And so you can still do astrophotography in light pollution. You just have a lot more hurdles to overcome versus doing astrophotography and let's say a Bortle 5 or a Bortle 4 area, you can start shooting the Milky Way and things like that. And just to give you a quick example of kind of what that looks like, here we have a Bortle 5 Milky Way photo versus a Bortle 4 Milky Way photo, and you can really see the difference between the two. So now imagine going from Bortle 4 to 3, 3 to 2, 2 to 1, things like that. Okay, so you've got the equipment now. You've gone out to a place where maybe you want to shoot the stars or the Milky Way. What are the settings you need to use when you're out there? Now, there's a bazillion articles and blogs and things like that that talk about what settings you need. And so I'm not going to go into too much detail about that, but I will give you just a quick rundown on what you want to do. So the first thing is you always want to make sure you're shooting in RAW because you want to keep all of that data, right? You want to make sure it's not being compressed. You're not losing any of that important data because again, everything is so faint in the night sky. You want to keep all of that. And so shooting in RAW is so important. I put it in there twice, but other things to keep in mind, like image stabilization, turn that off. When you're out shooting, you know, they have this rule of 500 to tell you how long your exposures should be with the type of lens you're using. And you can do that. I like the guess and check method, which is just take a 10 or 15 second exposure, look at the shot and zoom in. Are the stars looking really bad? Are they trailing really poorly? If not, bump up that exposure. If they are and you don't like it, drop the exposure, right? Just the guess and check method. Very, very simple. I like to keep things simple. And then focus, you want to focus at infinity. Focusing is probably one of the hardest things when it comes to astrophotography. And essentially, stars should be represented as pinpoints of light. So when you're out there, you want to point at a bright star, move your focus so that big star in your live view gets as tiny as possible. And when it's as small as possible in your live view, you're pretty darn close to being in focus. ISO, same thing, just the guess and check. Start between 16 to 3200, go up or down from there, and then make sure you're using camera delay. So that's all I want to go into about settings, because again, you could scour the internet and they're all going to tell you these same exact things. So perfect. You've got your gear, right? You've got your wide lens, and you know why you need the wide lens. You're out in a dark spot where you can take photos of the Milky Way, and you got your settings dialed in. You got your photos. You're super excited. What's next, right? What's the next step you need to take? And that is processing. Now, the beauty about astrophotography is it is an art, right? Photography is an art. And so we can take our raw image and put it through Lightroom or Photoshop or a combination of the two to get a result that we're happy with, right? So you see here we have a raw image of the Milky Way over some redwoods. And on the right, we have a processed image of the Milky Way and the redwoods. And so again, just dodging and burning, playing with saturation and vibrance, and using Lightroom and Photoshop to really bring out the details that you want to shine through to create an image that you want. That's the beauty about astrophotography. You can put in as much time or as little time as you want into post-processing to create an image that you're happy with. So that's essentially all that you need to do for single exposure astrophotography, right? Once you nail single exposure astrophotography, a whole world of possibilities opens up to you. And that's what I love about astrophotography. As we were talking about before, right? Astrophotography is a very broad term, and there's lots of subsections of things that you can do. And so it's the same thing when you do these single exposure shots, right? You can go in a whole bunch of different ways, right? From there, you can start to get into star trails, right? Where you actually want the stars to trail and you get these beautiful effects. Or you can do blue hour blending, where you take a photo of foreground at blue hour, and then you wait for the Milky Way to line up, and then take another photo and blend the two. You can do low level lighting. You can do time lapses. You can do tons of different things just with your knowledge of doing single exposure astrophotography. And that's the beautiful thing about it. But you can move up to the next step, right? You can start stacking your photos. That's the next level that we're going to be talking about here. So you've got astrophotography down. You're taking photos of the Milky Way in the night sky, and you kind of want to go a little more. You want to go a little deeper into astrophotography. And so that next step is tracking and stacking your photos. Tracking and stacking, to me, is one of the most exciting parts of astrophotography, because again, a whole new world of possibilities opens up to you. It's like the universe opens up to you. So why do you want to stack images? Now, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with stacking images because it gets rid of noise. And honestly, if you want to get down to it, you stack images because you want to get a good signal to noise ratio. Now, I don't want to scare people away with graphs. Some people might love them and love seeing this stuff, but essentially, for the sake of this talk, signal to noise ratio is just going to mean better or cleaner image, right? So whenever you hear me say signal to noise ratio, all I'm saying is you're getting a cleaner result, or a essentially better image, right? And so signal is just stuff coming in. Let's say it's the Milky Way, that's signal coming in, and noise is like your ISO, noise, read noise from your camera, light pollution, stuff like that. And noise is a function of signal, but it's a square root function. So that means even though you get more signal, you're also getting more noise, but it drops off, right? If you look at that graph there. So again, you stack images to increase your signal to noise ratio. You stack images to get cleaner results, right? And so here's a great example from Craig Stark. Signal to noise ratio. You see, you have a poor signal to noise ratio, a poor image over there, versus a nice signal to noise ratio where you can really see those fine details. And it becomes so important with astrophotography, because you're working with such low light that you want to be able to pick out, what is a dust lane in the Milky Way versus, what's actually just some random noise in your camera. What's a star versus what's random noise, and things like that. And so just to give you a visual example, here we have on the left a single exposure of the Milky Way, and on the right we have a stack of about 5 images of that same Milky Way. And you can see there are distinct differences between the two in terms of where you see, dust lanes and differences between bright and dark areas. And then a more extreme example to really drive home that point of why you want to stack. Here I have the Horsehead Nebula, and on the left, you'll see a single exposure versus the right, where you'll see a stacked, I think that's a stack of about 50 or 60 images, but you can really see how clean the image is on the right when you stack all of these exposures compared to just taking one shot. So again, stacking increases your signal to noise ratio, AKA stacking gives you a cleaner result because we're working with low light here. And there's all types of stacking software that you can use. If you're a Mac user, Starry Landscape Stacker is one that you can purchase. If you're a PC user, Sequator, you can get that one for free. So those are stacking software that you can use to stack your photos of the Milky Way to get those cleaner Milky Way results. You can also stack in Photoshop. It's a bit more tedious, but again, Photoshop is very powerful, so you can do it. These programs just, take out that tediousness. I don't know if that's a word, but it takes out that pain of, aligning all that stuff, and these make it easy for you. Okay, so again, we're talking about signal to noise ratio. We're talking about getting cleaner results. And another way to do that is to take longer exposures. But how do you take longer exposures, right? Before we talked about battling the movement of the stars, which is why we had to use these fast, wide lenses, right? We're trying to get in as much light as possible in the shortest amount of time. How can we do longer exposures, right? If the stars are moving, if only we had some kind of device that tracked the stars so we could do long exposures. And there is. So signal and noise, right? Just talking about longer exposures for all of you people who like math and stuff. But to increase that signal to noise ratio, you want to use a star tracker, right? The star tracker allows you to take those longer exposures without worrying about stars moving. And again, that opens up a whole new world of possibilities, right? You are no longer battling the motion of the stars, which means instead of doing a 15-second exposure and working with that, you can now go and do 2-minute exposures, because now the stars aren't going to be moving in your frame while you're exposing. And so these are just some popular star trackers, some of the most popular ones out there. There are other ones like the Move, Shoot, Move, and Omegon, and a bunch of different star trackers. But essentially, the star tracker tracks the stars as they move across the sky, which means you can do longer exposures to get a better signal to noise ratio, which means cleaner images, right? Cleaner results. And so another quick example here, a 30-second exposure at f4 on the left versus a 2-minute or 128-second exposure on the right. Look how much signal we're getting in, right? Versus the one on the left. You can't really see much. It's really dark, but the 2-minute exposure, we get tons of detail, which is awesome. So using a tracker means you're going to have to start blending your images as well, right? So let's think about it for a second. Now that you're tracking the Milky Way, your foreground is going to be blurry. Like if we look at this this image prior, it's kind of hard to see, but if we zoomed in, right, we can see that the foreground has some blur because we're tracking the stars as they're moving across the night sky, and it's going to smear our foreground. And so that means what we're going to have to do is take an exposure of the foreground and then take an exposure of the stars or of the Milky Way or of the sky and put them together. And so here's an example here. Here's a shot of the foreground. And then I waited for the Milky Way to rise up a bit higher so I could get an exposure of just the Milky Way. And it's a 2-minute shot here of the Milky Way, the core of it. And now blending them together and using those techniques we learned when we do our single exposures with Lightroom and Photoshop, we get an end result like this, right? We blend the images together. And so that's what you're going to be doing if you're using a star tracker, right? You're doing multiple images of the Milky Way, stacking them together, and then blending it in with your foreground. So the benefits of a star tracker, just real quick, you could take those longer exposures because you're no longer battling the motion of the stars. You can shoot at a slower f-stop. So again, you don't need to be wide open anymore. You can, get that slower f-stop to get better detail in the corners, right? You don't get vignetting or elongated stars. You remove those optical issues that you get when you're shooting wide open. You can use a lower ISO. Again, you're reducing that noise, which means your signal to noise gets better. Again, cleaner image. And stacking, of course, we're going to be stacking those multiple exposures. And you can use a longer focal length lens for deep sky astrophotography. And that is what we're going to be focusing on next, right? You're taking these beautiful images of the Milky Way, but now you want to go a little deeper, right? You're no longer battling the motion of the stars because you're following them with the tracker. So that means you're not limited to wide lenses. You can actually use longer focal length lenses now. And that's so exciting because, again, a whole new world of possibilities opens up for you here. And so, again, our typical setup was our camera on the star tracker with a wide lens, and we're getting these cool results of the Milky Way. We're blending them with our foregrounds. We're super stoked on it. But we want more, right? We want to go further. We want to go deeper. We want to use those longer focal length lenses. And so here's a shot of the Milky Way, right? And so we're going to start leaving the foreground behind, and we're going to start focusing more on just the night sky when we use these longer focal lengths. Now, let's say you shoot the Milky Way here, and you see a region of the Milky Way that you're kind of interested in. You want to get a closer look at it. So you take off your 12 mil lens, you throw on a 50 millimeter lens or something like that, right? And all of a sudden you see, whoa, there's so much more stuff in the Milky Way, not just the big Milky Way strip that we see in Nightscapes, but there's a lot of things going on deeper in the Milky Way core than we realized. Well, let's take that concept again and just go further, right? Let's say we're interested in just this region of the Milky Way. We want to see what's going on there. And so you throw on an even longer focal length on your tracker, and you realize that, oh my gosh, there's so much more just in that tiny region of the Milky Way than you ever realized. There's the Lagoon and the Trifid Nebula, two very famous nebulas that you can image with your DSLR and these long focal length lenses. And again, this is all just in a small section of the Milky Way, right? Now think of the entire night sky. The entire night sky has opened up to you with these longer focal lengths. And it's so exciting because you get new compositions, new targets to shoot, and you get to put your artistic input on these targets that you're taking photos of. And so you can go one of two routes, right? You can get a long focal length lens on your tracker, or you can use telescope, right? And this is a debate that will rage on until the end of time of what do I do? What do I get? Do I get a telescope? Do I use my long focal length lens? Like, which one is better? And I'm going to settle that debate right here, right now for all of you listening. And the answer to the question of which one's better, the lens or the telescope, is it depends. I know. So anticlimactic. But it really, really does depend. And so again, benefits of a telescope, right? They're made for taking photos strictly of the night sky. And so focusing on the stars is going to be a lot easier. The image quality of telescopes compared to similar focal length and similar priced camera lenses is going to be better for astrophotography. You can get more focal length for less price when you're using a telescope. Telescopes have accessories that you can add on to specifically for astrophotography. But again, if you have that $6,000-$7,000 camera lens and it's the same focal length as a telescope, it's gonna do wonders for you. It'll probably be better than that telescope. Again, you're just, the price that you pay determines, the quality of your lens. And when comparing to a telescope, it's like comparing apples and oranges. They really are two different things, right? And so use what you have. If you have that long focal length lens, use it, right? If you have a short focal length lens and you want to get a telescope, right? Here's just an example of shooting the Andromeda Galaxy with a couple different things, right? We have the Andromeda Galaxy through a Sony 400 millimeter lens. We have the Andromeda Galaxy taken through a Radian 61 telescope, or through a zoom 55 to 200 millimeter lens. So really, you can just use whatever you have to take these photos, right? You don't have to get a telescope. You don't have to get a long focal length lens. It's just whatever fits best for you. If you're strictly going just for astrophotography though, then I do recommend getting the telescope. Okay, so, and just some quick, telescopes that I recommend if you're using a star tracker. There's the Red Cat, the ultra wide lens, and the Radian 61. If you're using full frame, the Red Cat or the Radian are going to be great choices. If you're shooting with the APS-C sensor, like my Fuji X-T4, the ultra wide 180 lens will be a good choice as well. So just some quick recommendations. And what can you expect to take photos of now that you are using these longer focal lengths, right? Well, you could shoot galaxies, right? You can shoot nebula. You can shoot these wide areas of the Milky Way, like the Cygnus region here, where you get like the California Nebula, the Butterfly, and the Veil Nebula, and all that stuff. You get tons of different things that you can image. And again, you're just using your camera, the tracker, and a long lens or a telescope, right? And you can get these amazing, amazing results. And so as you move up the ladder, right, you're gonna run into this problem where the software that you normally use for editing your images starts to become tedious, right? And so you can do all of these things in Photoshop, but I highly recommend starting to focus in on dedicated astrophotography software. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about every single one because there are a bunch out there. There's free ones, there's paid ones. The one that most people go for is PixInsight. If they want a free version, they go for Deep Sky Stacker. But these are my recommendations for if you want to get into astrophotography. My recommendation is start looking into astrophotography software. So dedicated astrophotography software. It's going to do wonders for you. Okay, so you've gotten bit by the astrophotography bug. You want to spend every waking hour, or I guess every night, shooting astrophotography. You want to go further. You know, just using that long lens isn't enough. You want more. You want to go deeper, right? You want to go all in on astrophotography. So what is it that you do? Like, how do you go all in on astrophotography? So where do you start, right? Do you get a big telescope, right? Do you go for more focal length? Or what about a bigger camera? Like, what is it that you need to do to go all in on astrophotography? And with astrophotography, there's so many different components that you can start upgrading, right? All these different technical terms and all this different gear that you can get into. But what is that first step you need to take when you're going all in on astrophotography? And I'll tell you, it's actually on this screen here, and it's labeled number 1. It's the mount, right? The tracking mount is the most important thing when it comes to doing astrophotography. The most important thing, right? The most important piece of equipment is the mount, right? It doesn't matter if you have a $10,000 camera. It doesn't matter if you have a $50,000 telescope, right? If you have poor tracking, you're gonna get poor results. And tracking comes down to the mount. And when I used to sell telescope equipment, I would always tell this to people who wanted to get into astrophotography. There are 3 things you want to focus on when investing in this hobby. The 3 most important pieces of equipment in astrophotography. Number 1 is your mount, right? Number 2, it's going to be your mount. And you can probably guess what I'm going to say for number 3. It's your mount, right? That's how important it is, right? Tracking is so important for getting great results. So if you're going all in on astrophotography, you've got the mount. Awesome, right? What's the next step, right? You want to go deeper, right? So if you want to go deeper, you need a new lens, right? but there's a point where camera lenses are no longer feasible to use. And so your next lens is going to be a telescope. What I mean by that is you're going to reach a limit to where your camera lenses focal length runs out, right? You're going to have to use a telescope. Telescopes, you can get focal lengths of, 1500, 2000. I mean, you can get a 2500 millimeter focal length telescope for like $2,000. Let's see how much a camera lens is if you wanted 2500 millimeters of focal length. So again, your next lens is going to be a telescope because you're going to be able to get those really long focal lengths to go deeper, right? And so here are some examples of what it means to go deeper. Both of these images were taken with a Fujifilm GFX 50 attached to a telescope, right? And the telescope is about 420 millimeters, but these are the results that you can start to get, right? When you attach your camera to these longer focal length telescopes. And you can go deeper, right? You can go further than 420 millimeters, right? You can go for 1,000, 1,500, right? You can go 3,500 millimeters of focal length if you wanted, right? But before you do, you're going to have to get into these dedicated astronomy cameras, these astrophotography cameras. And I won't go too much in detail about these because that'll be a whole nother hour-long talk. But if you do want to talk about them, my DMs are always open. You can always reach out. We can chat about them. But essentially, you're going to be using these dedicated astronomy cameras because you're going to be imaging objects that are so faint. They are extremely faint in the night sky, and you need high sensitivity to capture these. And these dedicated astro cameras allow you to do that because they can capture light across the entire spectrum of light, of the visible spectrum. They can cool, so you can be doing 10-minute exposures with virtually no noise in your images. And you can use these special filters that allow you to capture specific regions of interest. And so you're going to be eventually moving away from your digital camera, and you're going to start using these dedicated astro cameras. And these are just some examples of the things that you'll be imaging when you've got that dedicated astro cam. You've got that long focal length telescope, right? And that really powerful, very important tracking mount. And even more stuff, right? The Rosette Nebula or Thor's helmet, right? Stuff like the Eagle Nebula or the Dumbbell Nebula. And again, this image that Bray took of the Eagle Nebula here, like that's the pillars of creation. That was only accessible by the Hubble telescope, 20 plus years ago. We're now, us amateur astronomers, astrophotographers, professionals, you don't need the Hubble telescope anymore, right? You can use amateur equipment to capture images of things that were only accessible if you had a government-funded space telescope. And that blows my mind. That's what makes me so excited about this hobby. And so, again, if you want to go all in, if you want to go over the deep end, this is what you're going to be getting. You're going to be getting the observatory dome, right? You're going to be getting the automatic focuser and camera rotator that continually adjusts the focus to make sure your stars are pinpoint sharp as the temperature changes, right? You're going to have dew heaters so you don't get dew buildup on your telescope. You're going to have electronic filter wheels that automatically rotate filters. You're going to have this robotic telescope mount that can track super precisely. You're going to have it all permanently installed on your pier. Now, this is a huge investment, right? But if this is what you want to go for, what you want to strive for, you can do it. And that's the beauty of astrophotography. You can go in as deep as you are comfortable going, right? And the cool thing about these like observatories is that they can be fully automated, fully programmed to do everything for you. And so for some people, that takes away the fun. But again, for others, that's what they want. They want the data. They want the results, right? To play with. They want to be able to get those images of the night sky so they can get to processing them. And so again, the beauty with astrophotography, whether you're a beginner or you're advanced, right? You can go in as far in as you want, whatever you're comfortable with. And that's the beauty about astrophotography. So that kind of wraps up my talk about astrophotography. Just a shameless plug. I do astrophotography workshops. do them in all these dark sites like Alabama Hills or Big Bend, Texas. And one of the things, I know everyone says this, but the unique thing about my workshop is, but I really do believe that these workshops that I hold are unique because I provide you the tracker and the telescope. All you have to do is show up with your camera, and I'll show you how to take photos of the Milky Way, to blend with blue hour. You'll be taking photos of galaxies and nebula. All you got to do is show up with your camera, whatever experience level you're at. So these workshops I'm very, very proud of, and I love hosting them. I love sharing the stars. And here's all my socials in case you care about that stuff as well or want to reach out to me. So thank you so much for listening to me get stoked about space. Hopefully it inspires you to get stoked as well.
Yeah, definitely, Ian. We're definitely stoked about space. In fact, I'm actually going on to our website right now, and I'm going to buy myself a dome and the whole shebang. I'm getting it set up. I know I have a small Brooklyn apartment over here, but I'm sure that everybody that I live with in the apartment doesn't care if I just, tear it all down and install a huge Hubble telescope inside of our house instead. you can live inside of that, right?
Oh yeah. That's awesome. Yes.
Awesome. So I do want to remind everybody who's watching, if you have any questions for Ian that you want to get in, make sure you send them in now. Use the chat feature or the Q&A tab here on Zoom, and we'll get them over to him. Like I said, I live in Brooklyn. We're just a terrible beacon for pollution over here. and so obviously that creates a huge issue and a huge hiccup when it comes to, anything astrophotography. So obviously a great alternative to that is attending a workshop like yours or, somebody else's workshop if it's in the area or if we can get out there. But, I've got friends who are into this, who, kind of dabble in it. And, what's the best way for somebody who lives in a big city like that to kind of get involved before they're ready to make that commitment and, get to one of those workshops, just kind of like dip their toes into it, so to speak, and, get out and, try to shoot something.
Right. So if you live in light pollution, there are areas around where you can go and take photos of the night sky. Now, again, not everybody has the privilege to go out to these dark sky sites, right? So if you want to get started in astrophotography, right? If you want to get started with, let's say, using your camera, right? The moon is a great starting place to just start shooting, right? You can shoot the moon coming up over the cityscape, right? Or setting over the water. So doing like lunar photography is a great starting place. Or you can even go out to some spots where you can actually see just a few more stars, right? You don't even have to see the Milky Way, and you can photograph the stars, right? And do nightscapes with just the stars. It doesn't always have to be the Milky Way. I know people always focus on the Milky Way because that to them is the most interesting part, but just having stars in your image can take your photography to a whole different place. And that's the beauty about the art of photography, right? Is maybe instead of a blue sky, you've got a dark, a dark background, a dark sky with a bunch of stars in there. And that changes the whole dynamic of your images. And so that's a great starting place as well. And if you do want to kind of dive deep, there are things like light pollution filters that will work even in the most extreme conditions. One of them is the Radian Triad Ultra filter. We actually went to Times Square, set up telescopes in Times Square with this Triad Ultra filter, took photos, and we got stars right there through Times Square, through all of that light pollution. So these filters that they have nowadays can cut through even the worst light pollution, which it just blows my mind that that's even possible.
Yeah. Like I said, trying to keep my head on and not blow it off over here. So Leonardo's joining us here on live stream and said, hello, I live in South America, and he's very interested in buying a tracker, but he's heard from people that it's very difficult to align an Australis star, or the North Star is the polar. Is there any device specific for the South?
Yeah. So first and foremost, if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, what I've heard a lot of people who are in the Southern Hemisphere say when they use trackers is they just make it, I guess like, they just get in the habit of doing the polar alignment. When you first do it, it is a bit overwhelming because there is no just one star you point at, right? They have to kind of use a little bit of reference stars to align to the southern celestial pole. But being able to just do that over and over and over, you'll get to a point where you can just do it without even thinking about it, right? And so just going out and practicing is probably one of the best things you can do. Now, outside of that, if you don't mind bringing, say, a laptop out to where you're taking photos, there is a device called the Polemaster or the iPolar. Those are devices that stick on your tracker. And, you know, if it's a camera that essentially tells you where you need to line up those reference stars. So it's an electronically assisted polar alignment. So those are options as well for you to polar align in the Southern Hemisphere.
Great. Now, Vic wants to know, and I love this question because we talk about it all the time. It's a question that gets asked a lot, and everybody's got a different answer. And that's what I love about it. But Vic wants to know, do you use photo pills to track stars and constellations, or do you recommend another app?
So yeah, definitely I use photo pills to help figure out, you know, when is blue hour, where's the Milky Way going to be? The night AR or the AR augmented reality on photo pills is so awesome because you can see where the Milky Way is going to line up with your shot that you want to take. So I love using photo pills. When it comes to shooting and planning deep sky objects, a website called Telescopius, is the website that I use because it, you know, based on what your location is, it tells you what deep sky objects are going to be, how high up they're going to be in the horizon, and at what times as well. So those are the two main things that I use.
There you go. I get a lot of people who come on and say photo pills is what their go-to is. So I think that's my next project. I think I need to come up with a competition to photo pills. What do you say? And you interested? I'll cut you in 50-50.
Hey man, sounds like a lot of work, but you know, if you put in the legwork, I'm more than happy.
I love it. You're in for the ride. I appreciate that. So Jesse's joining us on live stream and has a question related to telescopes. Are all telescopes fixed focal lengths, or is there such a thing as something like a zoom telescope? You know, he wants to get a telescope, but they're big, right?
Yeah. So yeah, all telescopes are essentially fixed focal length. So if we think about maybe when we were kids and we looked through telescopes, right? You know, you're looking through an eyepiece, right? The way that these fixed focal length systems like telescopes changed magnification was actually the eyepiece. So you would use different eyepieces to change your focal length. Now, when it comes to photography, there is, you know, they're all going to be fixed focal length. They do have zoom eyepieces and there's like eyepiece projection photography. But honestly, the best thing to do is like if you have a wide field telescope, use that. And if you have the resolution, say you have like a 50 megapixel camera, you could just crop in and get great resolution. And then there's like AI software like Topaz Labs, right, where you can just, you know, gigapixel your images or denoise them or whatever to make them look good. So even though you're cropping in and you're losing some of that resolution when you do crop, you can bring that resolution back up with software.
Awesome. Now Frank wants to know, he's coming to us from Facebook. Thanks for joining us, Frank. How do you know or look for in a telescope to mount a DSLR, like for example, a Celestron Nexstar 8 SE?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you are using a telescope, there is a type of standard that has been set over the years. Before it used to be so complicated and everyone has their own type of equipment. And so it got confusing. But nowadays, what you want to get is, it's called a T-ring, right? So if you have, let's say you have a Sony camera, you get a Sony T-ring that will, you know, mount onto your camera, and it has threads on it. So that T-ring will have what's called a T-thread. And so if you have, let's say your Nexstar 8 SE, you want a T adapter is what they call it. So you're going to get your T-ring to allow your camera to thread on to some type of standardized thread, which they call a T-thread. And then for your Nexstar, you're going to get what's called a T adapter, and that will allow you to thread that adapter into your camera and then from your camera into the next star telescope.
T-ring seems
T-ring.
seems so obvious when you think about it, but I would have never figured that out myself.
Oh, dude, they used to, like, the telescope world would have all different types of adapters, but only work for this manufacturer's telescope. So it's like you have 8 different pieces to do the same exact thing, and it gets so confusing. So I'm so glad that they've like standardized things lately.
T-ring telescope. There you go. Got it. So you talked about in the beginning, you talked about, kind of the basics you need is a camera, right? And the next thing you mentioned was some sort of stable tripod. So, just wondering, in terms of tripods, there's so many different types out there. There's aluminum, there's metal, there's carbon fiber, the list goes on. Obviously, most people will tell you carbon fiber is like, the best to use. There's no vibration. It's like gravity. It's the next best thing. But, in terms of astro, is that kind of still ring true where, carbon is going to be like the best thing you can get? Or is it really kind of, anything you get your hands on is going to be fine?
Yeah. So again, if you're a complete beginner, anything you can get your hands on is going to be fine. I mean, a lot of the astro photos that I've done, they were taken with like a $10 Walmart tripod, so you really can do
You're breaking my heart.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter too much when you're getting started. Now, when you're, getting into it, carbon fiber or a metal tripod, those are great tripods to get, especially when it gets a little windy. You want like that sturdy, solid foundation when you're taking those long exposures.
So let's talk about the Milky Way a little bit, because you hit on that, and I find that interesting. You kind of I won't call it a dig at the Milky Way. But, the Milky Way isn't like a person, so we're not making fun of it. But I think you have a really valid point. And, the Milky Way gets all this attention. It gets, all eyes on it, so to speak. Same thing you talk about, like, the Aurora Borealis, everybody wants to shoot that. Everybody wants to capture that. Why do you think there's this fascination with those particular, astro or celestial, phenomenons, and not, some of the other things that are out there? Is it just a matter of that it's so accessible and it's so bright, or is it's something deeper than that?
Yeah, I do think it's the accessibility thing where it's like you can get those immediate results. But when we do talk about the Milky Way, really what we're talking about is the core of the Milky Way, right? Because the Milky Way is not just the bright region, right? My little background here, right? It's not just this bright region, right? It stretches all the way across, right? And so there are regions that are still interesting that you can incorporate into your shots. It doesn't always have to be the core. And I think really it's just the core is like, whenever you look up how to do astrophotography, it's always geared towards like you're doing Milky Way photography, right? And what they mean is you're shooting the core of the Milky Way. And so all of the resources that you're getting from researching how to shoot the night sky is always focused on the Milky Way. So I think that's everyone's focus, is because that's what they're learning, right? Or they're being told that. But again, there's so many different things that you can do, right? You could just shoot like constellations, like the Orion constellation or the Big Dipper, and have that incorporated into beautiful foregrounds, right? So it doesn't always just have to be the core of the Milky Way. But yeah, to answer your question, I do think it's just because when people are learning about astrophotography, most of it is geared towards shooting the core of the Milky Way.
Yeah, see, I'm right on. I'm right on with that, because for me, all I really know is the Little Dipper, the Big Dipper, and Orion's belt. That's all I've got. That's all I could see out here in the city. I'm lucky if I could see that. So, I know that you put up, your website, your Instagram handle, all the handles, the social medias, as we call it. But I did want to put you on the spot. I do know that we've talked about it in the past, and I've checked you out on Instagram myself. I sneak on Ian Lauer a little bit here and there. I know you're launching something big on Friday. Do you want to let people know what that is? Should I let them know?
Yeah, sure. So I am launching a print store on Friday, and I almost never make my work available for purchase. Only like a couple weeks out of the year. So, this entire year I've only had one print store so far, and my work was only available for 1 week. And so I'm doing that again here at the end of the year, making these new designs, these new photos that I've taken, making them available for just 1 week. Again, starting Friday. And man, they like I have a really good success with it. I get such great feedback because honestly, like for me, sharing the night sky is like one of the best ways to, in my opinion, preserve the night sky because it starts getting people thinking about it, right? And honestly, my philosophy is like I want to take pictures of the stars to reconnect you with the past because our ancestors used the stars basically in every aspect of their life. They relied on them. It was the only constant in their life was the night sky. And it also pushes us towards the future, right? Because that's where we're going, right? Look at SpaceX and NASA and all these, sending satellites and stuff. So whether we like it or not, our future is in the stars. And so not only that concept of reconnecting us to the night sky, but also preservation, right? Again, our ancestors used the stars to, let's say, navigate and things like that. And so, like, we put so much effort into preserving these things of natural history, the pyramids or like Roman Colosseums and things like that. But the night sky is just as much a part of our human history as the pyramids or the Sphinx, right? And so we need to preserve that. But no one's really talking about the night sky in that way. And so for me, the best thing that I feel I can do is just spread the joy and the beauty of the night sky to get that conversation going. And a great way to do that is, doing prints, getting it. So, if you have these awesome like photos in your home, you look at it and it just reminds you like, dude, the universe is freaking awesome. It's freaking beautiful, man. And like, we're the first like three generations in thousands of generations of all of human history that can't see the night sky the way it was meant to be seen, and that has to have some kind of effect on us. And so yeah, launching a print store, very long way to
No,
say, hey,
no,
I got a print store
I
coming up so I can share the beauty of the cosmos with you.
I love that. I mean that if that's not to a great descriptor of your passion for the night sky and how you feel about this, then I don't know what it is, because I mean that hit me all in the feels. I'm sitting here and I'm going, man, he is so right about that. We do take it for granted, and we just expect that because it's up there, and we see it every single day, that it's going to continue to be there. And no different than how we feel about water and things like that we take for granted on a regular basis. If we don't take care of it, it will disappear. So I'm on board with that. If holidays are coming up, if you're thinking about the holidays already, you know Ian Lauer, he's your guy, especially if you know somebody who's into astro. That's what you can get them. Ian, thank you so much for being here. Honestly, a ton of great information, and we loved having you. For everybody joining us, if you didn't know already, it's been a really busy week over here at the event space, and it's just going to continue to get busier. We got a full day planned tomorrow as well. If you are interested and you aren't already, you can check out our Instagram page at BH Event Space. Okay. And that'll have all of the upcoming events. It'll let you know what's going on, what's coming up. So you can catch great stuff like Ian and all the rest of our programming. So head over there, give us a follow, shoot us a DM, whatever it is. Give Ian a follow too. The guy's got great stuff. I'm telling you, I've checked out his Instagram. I'm not just, fluffing it up over here. It's really beautiful stuff. But Ian, thanks again for being here. Everybody, thanks for being here as well. This has been another rendition of the B&H Virtual Event Space. We'll catch you again next time.